I'm Dan Cosley, and in today's video I invite you to learn a great slur study by Julio Sagreras from his fourth book of Études. This is lesson number 2. The study has a bunch of different interesting technical features. The main thing are ascending and descending slurs with a lot of patterns that are 1, 3, 4 or 1, 2, 4, both ascending and descending. And the way that Sagreras moves around the guitar is going to necessitate some discussion about shifting as well. There's some other things like right hand dampening and a whole host of technical challenges that, if you persist on them, will really raise your level. So I'd like to start by just looking at the right hand for the first measure. Now, before we get into a piece, I like to kind of look at the right hand requirements. In this piece, you'll notice that there are a lot of open basses with the thumb, and then a lot of middle index patterns that are played rest stroke. And you know, Sagreras came a little bit out of the Targa school and was influenced by Targa's student Julio S, and there was an emphasis on the rest stroke. I know that modern players are moving away from this technique to some extent, but it's still great to train with the rest stroke, even if you ultimately play primarily with a free stroke technique, because it helps teach the hand about the limited follow-through, and it also, the rest stroke gives a certain solidity and firmness to the sound that can sort of train your ear so that you start to demand a similar sound from your free strokes. We could talk about playing the piece with an all free stroke technique as well. Now, when I'm learning a new piece, one of the first things I'll do is try just a few measures. If it's an established pattern like in an etude, try a few measures with just the right hand. In this particular piece, it's triplets, and you'll notice that very often the right hand attacks are with the thumb on the first note of the first triplet, then the middle finger on the second note of the first triplet, and then we have a right hand attack of an index on the first note of the second triplet. Let me demonstrate for you. If we think of a 2/4 and a triplet grid that goes like this, tut 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 tut, then the right hand on open strings is doing this. Tut 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 tut. Now, let's look at the first two measures, and what we have here is, I'll play it for you first. It'd be really good to practice that and see if you can play in such a way that you clean up the bass resonances. So that, notice when I play the open A, I silence, after I play the E, I silence the A. And after I play the A, I silence the E. So I don't have those bass resonances just swimming at the bottom end of the music. So maybe as a first step for this piece, I know it's primarily a study in slurs, but let's get this right hand together. So we play, maybe the first 4 measures would sound like this if I played just the right hand. And I could loop that until I'm comfortable. Now, let's discuss the left hand, which is really the star of this study. Sagreras mentions several times in his method, I think it's great advice. He says that on ascending slurs, when you can, it makes sense to leave the fingers down as you come up. And then he also mentions somewhere that when you're playing a descending slur, it's not so much a thing of focusing all of the energy on the starting note of the slur in terms of the pressure, but it's maybe about the finger, the next finger, being firm enough that when you pull the slur off, you don't pull the string with it. So this thing of kind of leaving the fingers down on the ascending slur and then feeling a little firmness in the hand on the descending slur can improve clarity. Let's walk through it a step at a time. Here's the first measure. Let's focus on the left hand. So the first thing is just to hammer nicely with the third finger. That's our first triplet. And I wind up a little bit, I get a little bit of distance, and then I try to land close to the fret. And then when I come down in the second half of the measure, I have a moment there where I feel that all three fingers are a little firm, there's a little pressure, and then I can pull off without moving the string. Now you might play that first measure in a loop like this and play different dynamic levels so you get more control. I'll play just that first measure as a loop, and I'll try to play crescendos and decrescendos, like a wave of dynamic energy. But notice my right hand. Up, up. Now, second measure, very much the same. I would say a lot of the same stuff. Just notice that we're playing 1, 2, 4 now, a different combination. And of course, our bass note has changed to E. And so we want to make sure that we clear up the A resonance. I'll play the first two measures in sort of a loop at a slow tempo, and maybe you can try to play with me. So. Measure 3 is the first time we get a 1, 3, 4 pattern that's separated by 2 whole steps. If you look at the fretboard here, the 1, 3 feels fine, but this 3, 4, you might feel that that's a bit of a stretch. So you want to make sure that you extend the hand out a bit this way so that your pinky is getting close to the fret on the hammer-on. So let's take a listen to this. Actually, we're not hammering with the 4, but we're pulling. And the same thing for a clear sound, we want to be close to the fret. And then measure 4 is the same as measure 2. So the first 4 measures very slowly together. Here we go. 1 la li, here we go. Now, I said earlier that part of the study is about shifting accuracy. And you'll notice that in these first 4 measures, we have shifts of different sizes. The first shift is 2 positions, 2 frets. Right there. Then we have a half step shift, 1 fret shift. And then another half step shift on the way down. In measure 5, we get this 1, 3, 4 pattern shifting here, which this is kind of like an A7, flat 9 kind of sound, which is going to D minor. Now, if you're not used to playing rest strokes very much, you will probably find it challenging to do something like what Sagreras is asking for in measure 7 and 8, where you have a bass note and a note on top played rest stroke. It's a combined stroke where, so here's measure 6, and then here's the combined stroke. where you play thumb as a free stroke, tirado, and the apoyando is on top. That can be tricky to get the timing right because the resistance of the strings feels different. So you could start by just playing them sort of separately like this, and then try to close the gap so they become more and more simultaneous like this, and then simultaneous. Super important technique to have for balancing chords and creating a kind of an impactful, louder sound when you want it, but maybe highlighting that note that's being played apoyando. Now, the first 8 measures of the piece then end with just that simple octave. Again, play breaststroke on the top voice. And then that A note, which sets up, kind of launches us into bar 9. I'll play the first 8 measures for you. Now, you notice when I get into the second phrase here in measure 9, I cleared up that bass note. I cleared up the A bass, very important. Now, in this second phrase, measures 9 through 16, we're getting up into the higher regions of the guitar. And what I'd like to kind of say, not just for you, but for myself, about playing up top, think about a piano. If you play with kind of a lot of energy in the mid-range of the piano, it's okay, it's pretty pleasant. But if you're on an acoustic piano and you start to play really forcefully up on the higher keys, there's a ping and a sort of abrasiveness to the sound that's not very pleasant. So generally speaking, when we get higher up on the guitar as well, we can play a little bit lighter, and although we're playing lighter, the sound kind of comes across as being of equal dynamic energy to the ear. So up here in measure 9, when we get up to the 10th position, we can be a little bit lighter with the right hand. Now, here's measures 9 and 10, all under or over this D bass. Little longer shift. So this is measure 11. We play, again, a little bit longer shift there. And here, E. We get the first G sharp here, which is really like an E dominant sound. And that combined stroke again, all free stroke. Mute the A bass, mute the E bass. Again, from measure 9, I'll play very slowly. I want you to hear this and see this, and if you can, play with me. So 1 la li, 2 la li. Now, dampening is a big topic in guitar playing, and it really separates the great players from the less great players. It's one of the things. There are many techniques for it. If you noticed, I've been doing some different things here. If I look at that very end 2-measure phrase there, that cadence, the 1-5-1 cadence, maybe I'll back it up to where that G sharp appears. I just touched the E to dampen it, and then when I played this E major triad, I actually played free stroke on top and rest stroke in the bass, because I want to terminate on this string to silence it. And then after playing the A minor triad, I just touch the E string. So take a look at my thumb. And one more time. I would encourage you to investigate both the stroke where you play a rest stroke on the upper voice with the finger, free stroke with the thumb, and then the opposite where you've got free strokes maybe on a chord like this E major chord, but a rest stroke with the thumb. Sometimes we're using the rest stroke to create an accent, a pattern of accent. Sometimes we're using it for dampening purposes. And this is an example of using it more for the purpose of dampening with the thumb. I'll play at a moderate tempo, and then maybe I'll play a second time at a faster tempo. Here we go. One lolly, two lolly. Let's try a little faster, see how this goes. One lolly, two lolly, one lolly, two lolly. Okay, so actually, this is only half of the etude. But I wanted to share this with you because tomorrow night I'm doing a Patreon live group class. It's going to be an ongoing class, technique and etudes workshop, I'm calling it. You can check it out in the link to this video. Check out Patreon. You can sign up for a free week of classes. The first week is free. And I think tomorrow night I'm going to look not only at this etude, but I'm going to look at an etude or two from the Sagreras method that are earlier. So this is book 4 of 6 books, so it's getting a little more advanced. I'm going to look at some etudes that would be preparations for this, and that would, again, offer some variety, working on the same techniques, but in a few different contexts so you don't get bored. And I think the Sagreras method is fantastic for that. So I want to say, please subscribe to this channel because it helps me continue to make these videos and to continue to pursue this on my different platforms and things. And if you find it useful, let some people know. Join the Patreon. The group class is great. You know, YouTube is sort of one-way communication. I mean, we have comments, but I'm sort of speaking to a theoretical student. But if you're in the Patreon classes, in the live Zoom sessions, then the real teaching can occur where I'm going to tailor my advice to what you need and to what you're interested in. And so I just want to encourage everyone to sign up and check it out. I hope you found this useful and happy practicing.